up to page Mem Aleph. We're starting a new chapter. We did a whole chapter yesterday because it was short. Yes, we're starting the fifth chapter then, Shar HaChamishi, and it's called the Shar HaAhava, the gate of love. Okay? Love. Getting on to...
You call this the most important gate?
The gate of love? Let's see. I'll let you formulate your own opinion. Shar Ha'ava. Ha'ava koleles masim rabim yoser mikol hamidos. Love includes within it more actions, more deeds than any of the other attributes. Meaning, the attribute of love is very much all-inclusive. And when a person places his love for evil, there's no attribute which is worse than this. Loving evil. If a person feels towards evil the passion of love, that is the most difficult of attributes, because I'm putting two and one together. Since love includes the most amount of, let's say, areas or activities, yeah. So then, if a person who loves evil will be acting evil in the greatest number of ways, and with the passion of love. But a person who puts his love in the directs his love towards good, it is above all the other attributes. So here you say, Yosef, you don't have to ask me what I think, the author says it explicitly. Love is the greatest of all of the midos. As it says,
What's midos?
Attributes. Traits. As is written, you shall love your God. So you see, right, that attribute, which is the one that's relegated towards our relationship to God, is love. And there's no greater degree of service of God than one who serves God through love. You could serve the God through fear. You could serve God through other attributes as well. The greatest way of serving God is through love. Now let's take a look about the way in which love can destroy, can ruin a person's actions at the time that his love supersedes his wisdom. I guess what that means is when he gives sway to his attribute of love, but he doesn't guide that love in a way which is wise. Because there are many different types of love, many different manifestations of love, which are different one from the other. So now he's going to enumerate them. The first type is the type of love that a person has for his sons, his children. And through his great love for his children, he doesn't reprimand them, he doesn't chastise them, he doesn't guide them properly. And he allows them to go according to their evil, wicked, bent hearts. And this will cause great damage. So that ultimately, the type of love which results in this type of relationship with his children is really not a responsible love. It's a love that's going to cause more harm to his objects of love than help. And basically, what you were talking about here is the way in which people spoil their children. They spoil their children. The parent really understands that the child should not eat now, or should not eat this, or should not go there now, or should not go there at all, or whatever the case may be. And the child, at whatever age, throws a temper tantrum, appropriate for whatever age that might be, but every child can throw a temper tantrum. And then the parent, out of their love of the child, doesn't want to see them in pain and anguish demonstrating this temper tantrum, so they say, okay, here, take the car keys. So they take the car keys and they go out at night in town, and sometimes they don't come back, or they do, they come back in a white bag on their way to the morgue. The parent recognizes my child is irresponsible, or he's hanging out with irresponsible people. I know they're going to go out and drink. I know they're going to be driving drunk. And therefore my initial reaction is, no, you may not have the car keys. So then the son throws a temper tantrum, whatever that may be, and the parent gives way. Bad decision. Bad decision. In the name of what? Because they love the child? If you really love the child, you'd be willing to suffer the most horrific abuse from that child. Whatever bitterness they may spew forth during that temper tantrum, you'd be willing to endure and suffer and not give them the keys, knowing that their life may be in danger. A parent who really loves their child might rather give up their own life and not, right? And not subject their children to any harm. So this is an extreme example of what we're talking about, but that's the point. Now that child who at the age of 18 or 20 throws a temper tantrum, I'll never talk to you again. As far as I'm concerned, Dad, you're my enemy for life. I'm not going to come home for 2 weeks. And all the types of things that, you might say. And all of a sudden the father gives the car keys. Thanks, Dad. See you later. Right? It's all a bluff. Right? It's sick, right? But the child gets to that way because it started that way from day one. And nearly every single time, the parent was a softie and gave in and so forth and so on. So by the time the kid's 18, his temper tantrum is violent, it's nasty, it's mean, it's insidious, it's vicious, it's vindictive. Yeah. But that's because the parents love the child so much while the child's grown up that he's gotten to this point. That's obviously no good. Bad news. And the truth is, the parent in such a situation should say, you know what? Hate me. Hate me. You're not doing that. Right? It's not my job that you love me. It's my job to raise you properly. That's what I do. I raise you properly. If you hate me for raising you properly, that's your. But you have to demonstrate that you can't pull that one over me. That doesn't have weight. The child can't threaten me to do something which I know is wrong because they withdraw their love from me. So don't love me. I love you, and I'm not going to let you have the car keys. If as a result of that you don't love me, that's okay. It's not my job for you to love me. It's my job to raise you properly. So what's the child going to say? I hate you.
So be it.
Yeah, you already pulled the card. You pulled the bluff. And that's and that's the truth. So a person is very important. It's very important to make sure that your love of other people doesn't end up undermining the actual quality of that love and actually ultimately harming the love itself. The second one, ha'ava hashniya, the second form of love. Avas mamon, love that people have for money. Umirov teshukoso el mamon, and because of his great desire for money, lo ye maso matan shelo be'emuna, he won't do his business dealings honestly. Why? Because he loves money so much that it's more important to him than being honest, more important to him than other people's well-being. The main thing is that he should have money, as much money as it can. And as much as you get away with, you'll do it. Because the person has this love affair with money. And the result of this, he desires other people's money, he wrestles it out of their possession, he steals, and all this is in order to increase his wealth. And because of his great love for wealth, he will close his hand from giving charity, and he will be very narrow-eyed, meaning he'll be very stingy. So that's no good either. That's love of money. Hava shlishis, avas nashim, the love of women. Vim tihielo isha ra ba'alas gava. If this person has a wicked wife, this wife is a wicked woman, and she's very arrogant. He tosir milibo kol mitzvos v'tim shecheu achareya. He will cause her to forget all of the mitzvos and draw him after her. Why? Because she's not interested in God. She's not interested in the mitzvos. She's not interested in Shabbos. She's not interested in kashrus. She wants to go travel the world. She wants to see things. She wants to taste all different types of international cuisines. And she wants to be part of the jet set. And she wants to go here and she wants to go there. And since he loves women so much, she's drawn after what he gets from her as a woman. And he's actually going to be drawn after the other things that she wants as well. So it's very important that a person knows how to love and how to love women, but has to know how to love women for the right reason. And therefore, right, he won't be drawn into a scenario where in a form of prostitution, he's providing certain things for certain things, and then he's led astray. He's writing this book to a man, but the same thing would apply to a woman as well. A woman could be drawn astray because of her love of a man. But the point is, the genders have a very powerful energy of love between them. And if it's misdirected, then the love that one has for someone else, like his or her spouse, could end up drawing the person away from the right path. Yeah, I heard a story recently about a young woman who knows a young man, and this young woman became ill, and her friend was taking care of her, but missing time from Torah study as a result of that. And at some point, I guess he got a bit tired, overrun, maybe exhausted, and wasn't able to visit or take care of her, but he wasn't going to classes either. So she called him up and she said, "Wake up, get to class. But I'm sick, I don't feel well."
You're talking about me.
I'm just telling a story. Yeah. So he says, "Yeah, but I'm
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm not feeling well. I mean, give me a break. I've been taking care of you for a few days already. I need a break." That has nothing to do with it. Get up and go to class. So he dragged himself out of bed and he went to class and he started learning Torah. Why? Because he's got a good girl who, even though she's not feeling well, sent him to learn Torah. Even though it's not necessarily clear that her commitment to Torah is more than his, it might actually be less. But she had that instinctual drive to send him to learn.
Size is ultra religious. That even gets better.
Yeah. I'm not doing anything to reveal who the characters of this story are. I'm just telling a story. So that's the difference between, right, a bad woman and a good woman. Then we're not talking about women per se. We're talking about a person's spouse, the person who you love. If that person is drawn after negative things, so the love that you have for that person will cause you to be drawn after those negative things as well, and then vice versa. He tazer milibo kol mitzvos v'hitim shacheu acharei umirov ha'ava enu ma'ez panav negdo v'shomei leitzasa. And because of his great love for her, in such a case where she prods him to do bad things, he won't be able to have enough courage and strength to stand up before her, and he listens to her. Otherwise, she's liable to skip town, and then where will he be? Right? But the opposite is also true. If she says, "Go learn," but he loves her, he ultimately won't say no. He'll give way and say, okay, I'll do it, go. And he goes. But in the bad case, she'll cause him harm. And also, because of his love for women, for example, he'll be constantly looking at them. And that will cause him to speak improperly as well. And ultimately that will cause him to act sexually immoral, in a sexually immoral way as well. All because of an increased and improperly balanced love for women.
Immoral, like what do you mean?
Well,
like I understand the whole part, but like, what if he wants to like marry somebody?
So that's not immoral.
No, but like,
there's nothing immoral about getting married to the right person that you're allowed to get married to. The point is that he starts asking in a loose, licentious, and overly libertine way, which means what it means. What it means. Yeah, that's what I meant. So.
but it's
If he has, some people, have a greater drive and an interest in, members of the opposite sex. Let's say we're guys, right? So,
Like it's a numbers game.
no, I'm just saying, like some guys have a stronger drive, or some guys have like the pull of women have a stronger pull on them, and other guys, it's not that they're not interested, but yeah, no. There's other things in life, and that person might be driven towards money, for example. He has a very strong drive for money. Women, no. If for them it might even only be because it just shows how much money they have, because they can kind of afford to kind of attract certain type of women. So even for such a person, even the women might not be the women. It's more about the money. And the other guy could be totally like, totally drawn after women. Money, it doesn't really do anything for him. The only reason he might want money is so that he can get the women. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It can go either way. So there might be a person, in this example, a person might have more of a natural kind of biological, draw towards, or emotional draw towards women, and therefore they're going to have more of a sway in his life, and therefore he's more susceptible to be led astray if he connects with bad women. That's what we're talking about. Another person, and so such a person, whenever he walks down the street, he's always going to be like looking around.
It's a sin within itself. Yeah.
That's also a sin within itself. But he's constantly looking. He's on the lookout for wildlife. Yeah, he's constantly wherever he is. He's constantly on a nature walk. Yeah, he's looking for beautiful specimens. And the same thing if he's in a car or a bus, he's constantly looking out the windows. He's sightseeing.
So say you have a lot of friends that do this. How do you get them out of that? How
it's hard to get them out of it. It's hard enough to get oneself out of it.
To see if they're your good friend, and they're always doing it. It's kind of it's like you don't want to be their friend just because of the way they're acting.
Yeah, it's true, and in a way, it's degrading for themselves, and it's also degrading to women, because it's basically expressing the person's approach towards women, which is they're basically just.
And if you're with them, then
sex objects.
But kind of a part of it.
You're part of it, and it has an effect on you, and so you kind of person has to choose his company.
I think that kind of evil, it takes more than one person for that evil to happen, because I think not that I'm defending it or anything, but in certain areas, Baruch Hashem in Yerushalayim, this is not a problem. But if you go to Miami,
Hey, what's wrong with Miami?
I don't know.
I'm from Miami.
If you women are also not so tznius.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. They're looking for it just like the men are, and they're dressed to kill, and that's what they do. Boom.
But if there's a beautiful woman on a train, I can't stop. I can't help but look
look.
It's like human nature almost.
You can. The truth is, you can. You find it very difficult. I understand, but you can. A person can. It can be done. It's very difficult. It's very challenging. It's true. But the more a person is used to not controlling it, the more difficult it is for him to control it. The more a person is able to control it, more so. Let's say, for example, if a person were, let's say, homosexual, a guy or a girl, and there's another beautiful girl, a beautiful guy, for example. Wait, that's not the right word I'm looking for. No. You're heterosexual. Mm-hmm. And there's a very good-looking guy. A guy who's heterosexual would not be like, I can't stop looking at him, right? Because he's not interested in guys. Mm-hmm. He's interested in girls. So that shows, right, that you can refrain from looking at this. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? That you don't have a drive for the guy, so you don't look at the guy. You might notice, hey, he's an attractive guy, but it's not in a sexual sense, and then you just turn your attention elsewhere. So same thing here. If a guy who's heterosexual sees a girl, right, technically speaking, you could say, even if you look at, wow, she's a good-looking girl, but then turn away, and it doesn't capture your interest, your imagination, and your passion, right, in the same way that you wouldn't feel that way towards a person of the same gender, because it's just, that's not the way to relate with people. That's not the way you relate to that person. That's not a woman, right? That's a person. And as a person, I don't want to dwell on, it's not proper to be dwelling upon the physical appearance of that person or the sexual desires that arouses in me. That's reducing that person to some like a sex object, and that's not how I relate to human beings. So in other words, a person kind of, in this way, and using other tools, and through habit, gain more control in those situations, and not say, I can't control myself. As a result, like I said, just like feasting your eyes on a lady, like you're a guy, on a lady, and harboring these thoughts, that itself is a transgression. You're not allowed to think sexually about a woman who's not yours, your wife, yeah, and harbor on those thoughts. The thoughts themselves are improper, even without doing the deeds. Then those thoughts can ultimately lead to the type of to the prohibited deeds as well. So it's something that can be controlled, and the truth is there are plenty of people who.
So it's like okay to look at someone and be like, wow, that person's like attractive, but then if you start thinking sexually, then it's a different thing. Like,
that's right. It's a totally different thing. You shouldn't be looking around for attractive people, thinking when I see one, I'm just going to stop there and say, wow, she's attractive, but I'm not going to go sexual on it. You're not allowed to do that either. You're not allowed to be looking around for attractive women. But if it happens, but if it happens, you turn a corner, all of a sudden, meet face to face with an attractive woman. So of course you're naturally, oh, she's attractive. But then if you're saying, wow, then you're like, and then she passes by, you're like, then you're doing about face, right? And change your direction. So that's already, that's not how it's supposed to work,
And also,
particularly if you're married, what?
Interject, like, just thinking, there's a way, also, everything's got a way that you can make it not impure. So there's a special broker if you see someone attractive that you feel is attractive, there's a broker to say, no?
That's right,
So instead of going and letting your mind stray to those terrible thoughts you might have the person just by like focusing on just your sexual urges and your physical attraction, you automatically say the broker and your mind's already taken like, oh, I can make this holy, I can use it in a different way.
Right.
It's funny.
It sounds odd, because it's so
like you say to the attractive person.
Yes,
it's like
and it's like odd to us and maybe somewhat humorous because we're so far removed from that. But the truth is, it's true. It's kind of like seeing a beautiful statue, right? You admire the beauty of the statue, and without it arousing in you sexual feelings. I hope, right? So I mean, of course, if it's an erotic statue, that's a different story. I'm not talking about that. But let's say you see some, marble statue, and you have and in the classical genre, and there's a beautiful woman, and she's playing a harp, and she's properly dressed, and wow, that's beautiful, but it wouldn't. So the same thing here. If you could see the beauty as something which is praiseworthy as something beautiful, and turn that towards appreciating the quality of the creator of that beauty, God. Just as you would admire the talent of a sculptor who's able to sculpt out beauty from the stone, even more so. But it doesn't have to go beyond that. And when you say that blessing, that's actually one of the things it does. It ensures that you direct your appreciation of that beauty to its source, and not to your viscerals.
I heard something the same thing, but I think I heard it in a lecture. I'm not sure exactly if I heard this the right way. I'm just saying it's like.
Paraphrasing it.
Someone told me that I'm not allowed to say a bracha on like if I say a beautiful woman.
Yeah, I didn't want to go into the details of the halacha, but there is such a halacha.
Yeah.
Whether we do it or not is a different story, right? That's a different story. I didn't want to go. It's true. You don't look for beautiful women to make the bracha on, and even when you do see one, you don't make the bracha, right? But there is such a bracha, and the concept behind it is what he said. That's correct.
I didn't know about the flip side.
Yeah, because we can't really be relied upon to elevate our thoughts in the way that you described, which is correct. And therefore we refrain. We don't make there are many cases where we refrain from making blessings having to do with things that we see and so forth and so on. But suffice it to say that such a concept exists. That's the point.
So what if you? So it's best to ignore a situation like that, or if you don't have the willpower to ignore it, then only then would you go and...
His scenario?
But it's
No,
like, I think it's
or
like human nature.
or
I
making,
don't
you're
know.
talking about making a
So
bracha when you
you
see
see an attractive woman, instead of like
So that's it.
trying
Without
to
making
just
a
forget
bracha.
about it, which is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So then you bring in the case of making the bracha to not give you the
Yes, without
option.
without necessarily making the bracha. That's his point.
Without
Without
making the
necessarily making the bracha, at least recognize
Oh,
there's
so
a
you just-
bracha to be made of this. So
just-
I'm directing my initial
okay.
appreciation of that beauty to God,
Alright, so the
and keep
bracha-
going. Yeah, without actually pronouncing the blessing. Yeah. But so this is the thing. Now again, what do you say, Aaron? Sometimes you're talking about seeing this beautiful woman on the train, and you
Or
can't,
anywhere, yeah,
or anywhere, right? And you can't not look. But like I said, there are people who wouldn't even notice that she's on the train. There are those types of guys. They're just not that interested. It doesn't, and if they notice, they might like, and then go back to the book that they're reading or whatever. It's like it doesn't have such a sway over them.
No, I'm not saying it has a sway, but that's what I was saying.
Is that naturally or is
Like
that
I'm just saying it's
refined?
human
I think
nature, like
naturally.
just to like look and be like, wow, she's beautiful. I mean, go back to your business, but like,
That's not. I don't think that's human nature for
Oh,
most
really?
people, and I don't think it's human nature for the society that we were raised in. I think that it's more normal what you were describing
what?
to like not be able not to look, to be preoccupied with it, the whole trip. Yeah, that's how most guys would act. I'm just saying that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm just saying there are some people who don't, and it's also a function of your society. Like you said, it goes two ways. But
But if you watch, like, I have a lot of friends that do that. Like, I don't know, I just grew out like a lot of friends that like just focus and like I don't know, it's disgusting. So it's like you just kind of grow out of like you're like, whoa, I do not want to be like that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, it's true. It's obviously more elevated not to be that way. Certainly from the Torah teachings. But I'm just pointing out that a lot of it has to do with the person's temperament, and since that's true, since there are certain situations where it doesn't have such a sway over certain people, so then even other people, that should demonstrate to even other people that it doesn't have to have such a strong sway over us as it does. It can be minimized. It can be limited. It could be redirected.
It definitely helps living in like a very tznius area.
Yeah.
sneeze is-
I was in Miami recently, and the difference is just it's a total difference. It's like two different worlds. Yeah, that has a lot to do with it. So, a culture which is based on a love of these types of things is going to pronounce it very much, and people who grow up in it are going to become products of it, and therefore it's going to affect the whole mentality and the way they act and behave. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. But a person can get out of that, even though initially he says, I can't. There are ways to get out of that. And that's what the teachings of the Torah are for. So that's the third one. Was that the third one? That's the third one, yes. That's the third one, love of women. Ha'ava Ravis, the fourth one, Hi'avas Karovav. It's the love of his relatives. Avi v'imo, his father, his mother, ve'echav, his brothers, v'achyosav, his sisters, ushar krovav, and all the other relatives. Ve're'av v'chaverov, and also other people who are close to him, like his friends. Umitoch ahavasam, and through his love for these people in his life, yisageya lehem b'machlekusam, he'll help them in all types of ways, even in negative ways. So, his brother gets in a fight because his brother's a jerk, or at least he did something really stupid. And then, because it's his brother, he comes to his defense, when he should really grab hold of his brother and give him a smacker to himself and say, shape up, get into line. It's not coincidental that you got yourself in this situation because you're a jerk or you did something really stupid. Yeah? But because of his love of his brother, he'll get involved, right, and oppose the right person in defense of his brother who's in the wrong.
It's like being tribal or something.
Yeah. I didn't mean to say literally smack his brother. I mean smack, meaning put him in line, rebuke him. Hey, I'm sorry you're in this situation, but I got to tell you, you're wrong here. You're the one who's at fault. I'm your brother and I love you, and I don't want you to think that I'm like, what's the word? Like being unfaithful to you. But on the contrary, because I'm your brother and I'm faithful to you, I have to tell you When you're right, you're right. When you're wrong, you're wrong. And now you're wrong. You really got to stop doing what you're doing. Or you have to realize what you've done and rectify it. Rather than justify your brother because he's brother and then strengthen him in the wrong. Yeah.
Somewhere, maybe I got understood it wrong. Somewhere in, I think the Torah, it says that if someone like kills someone even by mistake, their relatives are allowed to like come and kill the person until he gets to the city of refuge.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, but it's partly true.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so I'm going to explain what it means. What it means is what the Torah is doing. The Torah is recognizing that if a person's very close relative is killed, they might have such a degree of anger that they can't control that. Perhaps they could, but it's very difficult to control that. And what the Torah is saying is that if that person were to kill the one who killed their relative, even by mistake, then they would not be liable for murder. They would not be liable for murder. Why? Because it's to a certain extent they've lost control.
Like the movie theater.
It doesn't mean to say that you should make the conscious decision to go and kill this person because you killed your relative. What it means is, in a scenario where the relative is so overcome by sudden grief and loss and shock over his relative being killed, and as a result of that, without thinking, he goes and runs after somebody to kill him, and he does so, he will not be liable for murder for that. And as a result, the person who's the killer by mistake is allowed to flee, and actually cities were set up as refuge where they could go, and at that point they would be freed from this revenge being taken place. And if somebody were to because of his anger take retribution against this person inside the city of refuge, then of course he would be liable for murder.
But that's only for the killer, right?
Yeah.
That's only like the revenge.
Yeah. So it's not like you're taking the law into your own hands. The Torah is making special dispensation for scenarios where the types of people who would lose control and want to take revenge without thinking what happened here, in such a scenario that they would not be liable for the death penalty themselves. The Torah is like saying that's a certain like type of temporary insanity. They're not in control of themselves. They can't be held accountable for murder.
It's not like,
But that's not saying that you should stand up and defend your relative even if they're wrong and take vengeance on his blood.
End up going to jail. Like,
For sure, not only could you end up going to jail, according
like the Torah says. Like,
that's right. But according to in this scenario, right, if the person says I lost control, and so it's a horrible thing and it's not condoned, but he would not be liable for the death penalty, such that, right, he would not be liable for murder, such that he himself would be liable for the death penalty. That's not considered like cold-blooded murder. It's hot-blooded murder. It's murder which he committed in a state of lack of control because of the great shock and anger and so forth and so on. So you're raising a very good point, but I think that's a significant distinction. And therefore, a person's love for his relatives should not cause him to condone all types of wrong things because of that. And because of their love of the relatives, they won't really go into whether they were in fact at fault in this argument they had with the other people. It happens all the time with mothers and even fathers. The kids come home with a bloody nose. Yeah, I had gotten in a fight. So the parent goes down and grabs the other kid by the ear and takes him to the family's home. You see what your son did to my son? You see your son is a wild maniac. In the meantime, he doesn't realize that not only does the other kid have a bloody nose, he's got a bloody ear and a bloody tooth. For every one punch his son got and came home as a crybaby, he gave 3 to the other kid. And why? Because he started the fight in the first place. But the parent's like, oh, my son. Your son started the fight. And if he got the worst of it, it's because he started it. He shouldn't have started it. And in fact, sometimes he didn't even get the worst of it. He got the better of it. But he comes home crying in order to deflect the blame from himself. Right? So the parent sees his child coming home with a bloody nose, crying and everything. Who did that to my son? And for the kid, he knows he's guilty. And he knows what he did to the other kid. So to avoid blame, deflect punishment from himself, he comes home crying to the parent. The parent has to say, what happened? Let's not make any rash decisions or assumptions here. Who did what? Who started it and why? And you can't ask the kid because he's obviously biased. Who was there? Once you get the story, you can say, listen, I looked into it. The information I got, not from my son, but from others that were there, is that what happened was X, Y, and Z. Look, I heard it from kids. It might not be true. I'm certainly going to, make sure my kid doesn't do anything wrong. I would ask you to please speak to your son, right, and make sure, he gets some instruction about how to do in such scenario X, Y, and Z. But to go blaming the other kid and the other family and making a whole big thing about it, that's wrong. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Oh, it's just a thought that came through. I had a friend he was raised in Brazil, and his father said, if you ever come crying to me because you got beat up, I'll give you another.
I'll beat you too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily the Torah's approach, but certainly we shouldn't be initially sympathetic to the son only because he's our son, but we should look into the fact that perhaps he did something wrong, and therefore not be overly pampering because he's coming home with a bloody nose. So this person who has unjustifiably extreme love for his family, therefore, he will always help them and protect them and cover over any of their misdeeds. And because of this great love, even if they broke down boundaries, they were really wrong and transgressed, he'll still protect them. And he'll also listen to his family members even if they're off. And even that advice is not good advice, they'll still listen to them because it's my relative who told me. And if he's able, he'll also want to promote their position, even if it's not befitting of them. I suppose this implies that if they are fitting for the position, all things equal, there's nothing wrong with giving the promotion to your relative than to someone that you don't know. All things being equal, as long as they are qualified. Kagon la'asoisam moshlim ve'parnasei ador li'yois rodim ba'am, to give them different alternate types of powers, of positions of power and authority. Va'afidu mehem rishoim lo yachush b'zeh, and even if he knows they're wicked, he still won't pay attention to this. He'll give them the advancement. V'inei ava ma'averes einav, love blinds one's eyes. Umachareshes oznav, and deafens his ears. V'yesh b'zeh kilkul gadol, there's great damage to result from all this. Ki hem yatu es ha'olam lahav lihem, because these wicked people will then cause others to go astray. It's very common, because if you're in love with somebody, you're not willing to see or hear the evil that others point out in them, when in fact it would behoove you and your loved one to know exactly what's wrong in order to address it, but the love prevents that from happening. So love is a very good thing, but it also has a lot of potential pitfalls.
It would be lashon hara, no? If there's something evil about it.
Well, it depends on what scenario. Again, you are allowed to hear negative things about other people under certain circumstances, if it will help one way or the other. What's that?
I only heard it's only allowed in marriage or something.
No, in all different types of scenarios. Somebody says, yeah.
That is so hard.
Yeah, that's for sure. Somebody says, he's not. I see you're entering in some business arrangement with that person. You should know that, it's my experience that person is not particularly reliable or honest. Oh, lashon hara. Look, I'm telling you from experience. You're not allowed to believe me, but you are allowed to take precaution. And therefore, it's my obligation to tell you, to warn you, and prevent you from coming to harm. Let's quickly do the fifth one, which is just a one-liner. Hava chamishis, the fifth one, hi avas oirech yomim, the love of life, longevity. Mirov shu oyev esechius lo yamod b'nesayon. Since he loves life, he'll never take any risks. He'll never do anything dangerous. He'll never do anything which requires courage, because he's constantly bowing down. Life. There are some things which are worth dying for. There's some things which are worth sacrificing for. And if a person has an overly placed love for life, then he'll never make much of himself. He'll always just be bland and never stand up for his principles. So that's the fifth form of love that we have to be aware of, the negative ramifications of. Okay.